We talked about a variety of different lessons that we could learn from these great stories. But, if we were explaining Ramayana to a child, to a young child, or maybe, to some grade five or grade six students, and we thought, let's distill this down to three takeaways that we want these students to walk away with. Because, with kids, they'll hear everything, but they may remember one or two, maybe possibly three things if you're lucky. But I thought, as you know, I'm an author of children's books, and I have two young kids myself. If there were three lessons that I could impart to my children about Hanuman or Ramayana, what would those three lessons be? If you had to distill them down to three lessons, what would you say the top
Hmm.
three would be?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. One that for the first one that immediately sort of came to mind, and I think is really valid for everybody living currently on this planet,
Mm.
is is to never be afraid and to never give up, and to always approach life with a sense of adventure, and rather than seeing things in life as something you have to do, as seeing it something everything as something you get to do.
Mm,
That's the way
love
Hanuman
that.
approaches everything. It's like, I get to serve Ram, I get to go save Sita, I get to do all these things, and it's just an ongoing ever, like, he's a character in a video game, and it's just like when you're playing a video game, it's like you get to go on these maybe scary missions, and do these treacherous things and come out, but you're the hero. So you're doing these things and you're enjoying the time. So
Yeah.
it's really about that. The whole book is just to look at life as an adventure, a
Oh,
movie.
love it. Love
Mhm.
that. Yeah, I think that sometimes gets lost on folks, right? Especially when you're going through those really, really hard times. Sometimes you almost have that question, like, why? Why is this happening to me? Why me? Why me? Um, as opposed to maybe looking at it, it's like, this is going to make me stronger. I'm going to learn so much. And if this doesn't break me, imagine the kind of strength that I get to take with me after this. So I love that. That's such a solid lesson, especially for young kids. If you can get that at a young age, life gets that much easier as you get older and you face challenges. You feel like,
Mhm.
I've been here before. So, okay, I love that lesson. So proceed
And
with
children
courage.
already have that so much better. They understand that so much better than we do.
Mm,
Young children, they haven't that hasn't been beaten out of them yet. They
that's
come
true.
here, like as a newborn, you come here as a soul, like, oh, I want to play that game, and you
That's
you
so
you
true.
choose it, and you come here on purpose, and you're ready to go, and then
Yeah.
adults beat it out of you until you just find yourself just repeating subconscious patterns in your mind, the
Yeah.
magic, that sort of thing.
So you just said something that was like, it was like an aha moment for me. You said, it's almost taken out of you as a child. You have it and it's removed. So maybe this is more of a lesson for adults, educators, teachers, parents. And I always say to people, in my line of work, when I would, go out and I would do workshops for educators and teachers, and adults, I always say, whether you're an actual teacher in a classroom or not, if you're an adult, you are a teacher. Someone's always watching you, whether you're in line at the grocery store, while you're driving your car, or standing at the bus stop. Someone's watching. And as an adult, you have to realize that you are going to be modeling certain behaviors, what you say and what you do. And if you realize that that's always an opportunity, maybe you're more conscious of the people that are around you. So I share that only because what you said resonated with me. So my children, I have an 8-year-old and I have a 5-year-old. There is a wonderment and awe and this boldness that scares me sometimes as a parent. So it makes me almost want to be a helicopter parent. Like, don't do that. Be careful. Don't go up there. Don't climb there. And you don't realize, but sometimes you in trying to keep your child safe, you can chip away at all of those things that makes them want to adventure and journey and take
Mhm.
risks. And if you think of it, all the greatest lessons you've learned are usually the ones that came either at the hands of failure or at the hands of trying and not succeeding. So I'm so glad that you said that, because you're right. Children just need to be reminded to listen to that inner voice. It doesn't mean you throw caution to the wind and run across the street without checking the directions, but I think that you sometimes instill fear as opposed to curiosity and courage. And so I think
Yeah.
that's a great reminder.
It makes me think, like, as you say that, it's like this is a game that you can play with your children. If you're reading this book together and you're exploring these things, because that's what Hanuman is. He's never somebody who just, this character who recklessly does anything. He's always pausing. He's always bringing a sense of awareness to the situation. There's so many parts of the story where he stops and he gets very present, and he tunes into intuition to guide him. Is this right? What I'm doing right now? He tunes in, and he's a vehicle of Rama, of God. So
Right.
when whatever he's doing, he's being guided. So when he's doing these very heroic, incredible, dangerous things, but always taking a minute. And that's why the book is so wonderful, because it's just like us. We stop and we evaluate. We think about, okay, if I did this, then this would happen. If I did this, then this would happen. You get to hear his mental sort of way that he gets there. And if you're playing this game with your children, maybe it's a fun way for you both to, to advance together, keeping that sense of childlike joy and curiosity and all that, but with sort of structure and a way, like a path forward with that.
Right. Okay. Love that. So that big lesson, stay curious and look at things as an adventure, as opposed to, well, I can't believe I have to do this. It's you're so privileged to be able to do this. It's, you're grateful for that experience or opportunity. Okay. So that's one great lesson. What's two more that you would want to impart to children?
Yeah, like really overall for me, I just keep getting this. It's just the whole thing is just don't be afraid. There's so many little ones like sort of weaved in there that I could bring up with context and tell you the story and all of that kind of stuff. So maybe if like I was to dive into certain aspects of the Ramayana that I could like explore in that way, that might be a way to kind of continue to share lessons. But like really, without like doing a little bit of thought around that. And
don't be afraid. That's what
yeah,
resonates. Okay, so let's use a real world example then with that, Chris. So right now we are in June of 2022, and the market is crashing around us. We have cryptocurrency at an all-time low for the last couple of years. We have the stock market plunging. We have incredibly high interest rates, and inflation is just going through the roof. There are many people out there who are extremely fearful because they see what they had just a year ago completely evaporate, and they don't know how long this is going to continue. And they got real issues. They're trying to feed their families. They're trying to keep a roof over their head, and and stay alive. So when you're facing that kind of adversity, how do you say don't be scared or don't be fearful, or what is the guidance or the wisdom in that moment where it seems like you are about to be engulfed by the flames?
Yeah, that's the key, right? It's like it's easy to say these things, but like how do you actually put that into action? The stories are great examples of that. And if we're tuning into the stories and we have a spiritual practice, we're constantly bringing ourselves back to this. So I'm glad that this question, like I've got a lot around this. Actually, just yesterday, when we were talking and things were coming up for me. In the meditation that I hosted last night, we were talking a lot about this. So this is a very potent subject for me currently. As it pertains to the Ramayana, things that were coming through for me is that we can use these images of Hanuman and of Rama, specifically to our project. I'm creating these like power images that we can use as a reminder, and that's what we're doing with each other with this community, is we're reminding each other daily, like we're in this together. Like don't give up, don't be afraid, don't get scared, because and the reason, you can easily say that, but okay, here's the scientific reason why not to be afraid. I've got some notes here around this. It's something that I always quote. This is from Swami Kriyananda, one of my teachers at Ananda. He said, "The secret of prosperity is happiness, for a determination simply to be happy attracts prosperity. Happiness is at the same time the best definition of prosperity. So
Love
we
that.
decide, like, like we're reading these stories. Okay, I got, you have these experiences with it. You want to be happy all the time. You want to not be afraid. You get it. You understand it in those like peak moments, And
Yeah.
then this is saying, okay, let's make a determination to be happy no matter what. And that determination actually magnetizes us and attracts prosperity, good things to us. If we're upset, if we're frustrated, if we're scared, that actually keeps us from being able to tune into intuition. So we're going to miss opportunities. We're going to miss inspiration. We're going to miss things if we're upset. Like our prefrontal cortex just shuts down,
Right.
and we get into a fear mode. Well, it's really, it's like we make bad decisions when we're afraid. We cut corners when we're afraid. We make just, it leads us to making a lot of decisions, but not good ones, so that's like really the reason to do it. It's not just this airy fairy, like, oh, just be happy all the time, or have some sort of like, fake confidence or hubris or something like that. It's not that at all. It's like, this is really actually very challenging to do. And it's the daily, like, stoking yourself in some way, So what I was, telling the group last night and in other weeks that we've been talking about these things is that this is the time to double down on your discipline. Like if you've been thinking about starting a daily routine, or if you have a daily routine of things that you're doing that are good for yourself, this is not the time to like abandon those when you get scared. It's like, okay, we're being faced with these things. So now let's make sure that we're doing these things and double down on it, like get better, more focused and more sincere about it. So that's it. And I've been sharing this a lot. I make these shirts that say calmness, sweetness, happiness. I've been making these coins, and this is based on Yogananda's. He said this once, that you should make just think about it as a triangle: calmness, sweetness, happiness. And that is when you forget, when you get scared and you're in this life and you don't know what to do. It's calmness, sweetness, happiness. Like that's the game. So I decided, like I'm gonna play this game with my friends. So that's why I made this, this little coin.
Yes.
So it's to keep in your pocket, and then if you and your friends are playing this, and the more that you get other people around you that agree this is a good idea in their down. And so whenever you get afraid and like, oh, what, you put your hand in your pocket and you hold the coin, and it's like calmness, sweetness, happiness. Like,
I love it.
Like it, but
I love it. How do we get our hands on one of those coins, Chris?
Yeah, so they're on my website, and I have a deal with them. So if you get, you can get 2 of them and you get 1 for free, then you can share 2 with your friends,
Okay.
So yeah, so those
I'm
are.
I'll order some for my girls, my wife, and my kids, and our entire family will do this. Calmness, sweetness, kindness. If when you were saying that, if someone said to me, as whether it's a teacher or anybody that's in my child's life as they get older, if they came to me and said, your child is so calm and so sweet and so kind, I would have thought she made it.
Yeah,
she made it. That's all I want.
Happiness. But yes, that is it, man. Like it's right. It's like no one's going to be upset at you if you're calm, sweet, and happy.
Yes.
And kindness goes right in with that.
Yes, kindness. Sorry, and happy. Yes, correct. Okay, yeah. I absolutely love that. I'm ordering it as soon as we get off this podcast. You said something that also struck a chord with me, Chris. You said, this isn't a mentality that it's not like that superficial, just be happy or there's a reason to act in this way. There's a reason to approach life with calmness and sweetness and happiness, because like you said, it opens up the door for opportunities and possibilities to get you out of whatever the situation you're in right now. That is tactical. I remember in reading Gandhi's autobiography, he talked about, when he was protesting, like civil unrest. And they said, is it just, passive resistance? And he says, it's not, there's nothing passive about this. He says, because you decide not to hit back, it's actually, it's an active resistance. It requires a lot of courage to take a punch and to take a hit and to not strike the person back. And to see that person as a brother or a sister, and have compassion for that person and to forgive them. And Mandela did the exact same thing. It's like this active, non-violent resistance, not passive. And I just thought it was very beautiful. And I think it's easy to get lost in that type of jargon or terminology. But the way that you said it, I think really resonated with me. Like this, everything shuts down when you choose not to, to act in that way. But if you can activate those, what would you call them? Virtues. You create the potential to get out of hell in some cases that people are experiencing every day. And so you have to act in these ways. And it takes courage.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's it. It's not a passive thing. It's like it's something that you can't fake, and it takes a lot of real work and discipline to get there. But it's not grim work, This is the same going back to that principle. Like this is actually adventurous, heroic journey kind of work. It's not easy. It can be very it can really push you to your limits to really just see what we're made of. But that's what we're doing. And to anybody that's tuning into this, if you found your way to this podcast or to my artwork or whatever, then you're finding yourself ready for these kinds of things. Not everybody needs to be like approaching life in this way. Not everybody is ready to, because it takes a lot to do it. So you have to get to a place where you've kind of tried to find happiness in all those other kind of things like money and sex and alcohol and all this kind of stuff that is like we think brings us happiness, or fame, all that kind of stuff. So we have to have gotten to a place where we've like at least tasted a little bit of some of that stuff, or we've like, our past lives, we've already done that. And now we're like, okay, none of that actually brings us happiness. Right. Happiness actually, it comes from us. We decide to be happy, that because our soul's true nature is to be like just loving awareness. We're sitting in this like ocean of love, infinite love and infinite bliss and possibility, like just in every, atom of the universe is just infinity contained inside infinity, and we're just inside this. So when we become just awareness, we're just like wow, that's the experience of the soul. And the soul just gets identified with the limitations of the physical body. So that's when we get scared. We're like, we got to protect thing, but actually what all the great sages say is like, you actually, when you're getting into like a in tune with the spirit or the soul or the higher self, then it's actually always doing all the work. Like our lifetime, I like to think of it like a meteor headed towards Earth. It's like on a trajectory. Like your life is like that. All the things that we've done, like all the things that I've done and said and been embarrassed, we're ashamed of, those are going to happen no matter what. I'm just the soul that decided to like rent this DVD.
Right. I love that. That's really cool, Chris. I think proceeding with courage and don't be scared, don't be afraid. Like that's such a it seems so light, but it's so heavy. And like you said, you do have to be disciplined to move forward like that. So, okay, wonderful. If there's any lesson to pass on to my kids, it is to proceed with courage.
I haven't, so like yesterday, just from as a personal, like for me, like I was feeling that collective fear and that sort of like, it's so strange. It's like when I wake up in the morning, I feel like I'm in the subconscious. I'm not chanting my mantras. I'm not, keeping my mind on God. I'm in the astral, just in the subconscious realms, who knows what
Mm.
I'm going through in the subconscious realms. I'm not present,
Right, right.
Um, so when I wake up, like I feel like mortal.
Especially as you get older and you got those aches and pains that remind you how mortal you are. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And those, pains, like the flood of your life situation comes in and all of that stuff. You feel the energy of, the of everybody else in the planet and that collective. So yesterday I was really feeling that. I think I was kind of like sharing with you guys a little bit about like some of the tools that I go to. Like there's a book called The Obstacle is the Way. The
Yes.
author
Thank you
Ryan.
for sending that. Yes.
Yeah, and he's really like breaks down Stoic philosophy in such
Oh,
a
yeah.
like an exciting way. So I was tuning into that yesterday because I was like, these are tools that for me when I get afraid or when I'm like, it's like with this project, I know like what we're doing. We're supposed to be doing this, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
and I know that we have so many things that we're doing that I really believe in, and so no matter what is the climate of NFTs and cryptocurrency and all of that, this book, The Obstacle Away is the Way, it talks about all of the great companies and inventors and great minds of the world that we can learn from, who have done their greatest achievements in the most difficult and treacherous times on earth, during depressions, during wars, during pandemics. Like this is when the greatest things that we now come to see as just part of our reality were
Right.
created during that time. So this is very potent, and I know that, and I love that. So I was kind of restoking myself yesterday by going through his work, and I was sharing with the meditation group last night this like sort of like just a little list of some quotes and from my teachers and from philosophers. So I just like to kind of go through this real fast. This is
Sure.
what got me like, because I'm going to go do my guided meditation. I can't come in there with any fear. Like I have
Right.
to
Of course.
be emanating happiness and calmness and smoothness. So I try to make sure like I dig out any of those things and they evaporate by the time I'm there.
Yes. Yes.
In a quick period of time, the things that brought me back out of a little bit sensing fear into a feeling of calmness and sweetness and happiness. So Ryan Holiday talks about, I think this is from Marcus Aurelius or maybe Friedrich Nietzsche, but this idea of amore fati, which is a love of faith, a love of fate. And Friedrich Nietzsche, he described this as his formula for greatness. He said that this greatness comes when one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely to bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but to love it. So this idea of like whatever is coming to us, we're going to love that thing
Wow.
for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He told this story of I believe it was Thomas Edison. This was like in his Thomas Edison's prime. He had this giant laboratory that they've been doing all of their research on lighting and everything that they've been doing and all the records that they have. He was at dinner one night with his family, and a man comes running into the door from the laboratory and tells them that the laboratory is on fire. And rather than him jumping up and getting scared and running, he says to his wife and his children, like, go get your friends, let's go, you're never going to see a fire like this.
Wow.
you know
True story?
yeah, and they stood, and there's history of this, even they stood and just watched the fire in a jovial way of just
Wow.
let it burn. I'm going to make it better when it's time.
Wow. So he saw all of his life's work and whatever he was currently working on go up in flames. And he's like, it doesn't matter because everything that I need to know is already here and I can recreate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what he did, made a better facility, everything like that. And that to me is like, man, I want to be like that. And just that
Yes.
sort of like in the moment, okay. And that's what meditation does. It allows you to slow down your thoughts. So a
Mm.
reaction that I might have, I can have like just a split second before I get scared. Now I can go, ooh, wait, oh, what is that? What are these books I love to read? What are these teachings? Like, I want to be like that. And I get a little bit more time, like every year or so that I'm meditating, I get a little bit bigger of a gap to like, ooh, don't just say the thing that you're going to say or react in the fearful way that you would normally react. Like, who's your heroes? Like, and that's the thing too, is like with these images, with these coins, it's like, with your friends that are reminding you, with what we're doing with this community, like we're going to continually be reminding you of this. And
Yeah.
around people who are doing this, and it more that you do it, it actually, your brain, it we have these grooves in our brain that are conditioned, like patterns, so whatever we're used to reacting in that way, there's a groove that's dug deep in there. So when we react in a different way, we started creating this little tiny scratch of a new groove,
Mm.
and then we do it again and we do it again. And that one, the old groove starts to heal and the new one comes in. So
Ooh.
now we're just reacting and
I
responding.
I need
Love.
some new grooves. I need some
Mhm.
new grooves.
Yeah, so that one is that story that just gets me, and we can link like a little, like there's a video of Ryan talking about some of these things, that just, when he's talking, it just gets you fired up. So hopefully this
Yeah.
gets you fired up as you're kind of thinking about this. It turns it from, like, oh, it's so sad that crypto is such in a bad place now, or there's the NFT world has become flooded and there's all this kind of stuff. And in that, you can tell how that starts to like just make you feel small, makes your energy go, oh, maybe we should give up,
Yeah.
but it's like the opposite, it's like this kind of thing comes, it's like, okay, good, there's going to be less people in the field, on the field here to be cluttering up the game.
Yes.
The people who are really serious, or sincere about what they're doing, we're not serious, but we're sincere about what we're doing, is that those things will last, those things will thrive. And all the other stuff that wasn't really, the heart wasn't really in it, they didn't really believe in it, they're just doing something to like earn a buck or whatever, which is totally fine. That's how a lot of companies get started.
Yep.
But the really great ones will see opportunity in the most dismal times, so.
Yes. So the clarity we're all looking for has to go through this. So what we actually want, sometimes you have to go through the fire, get whatever that needs to be purified, and then let the best rise to the top. And then you have that certainty where you can invest, or that you can at least lean on. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, love that one. Give me another one. That's
Yeah, and it's
fantastic.
right in line with what you just said. So Marcus Aurelius said, what you throw on top of a fire, the fire turns to heat, brightness, and flame, So you just throw all your fears and everything into that fire, and just allow, like, okay, we're doing this, and we see whatever comes our way as these obstacles, it allows us to pivot and make difference. So be like water,
Yeah.
my friend, and that's how you will succeed. And also too, like our definition of success is to become happier, to become calmer, to
Yeah.
become sweeter, to success should not be measured by the things accomplished, but by our increasing understanding, ability, and closeness to God.
Oh, I love
That's
that. That's cool.
an affirmation that I do in the morning, to remind myself of this. Another one of my teachers, Naya Swami Asha, she says, stress is merely the resistance to what is happening.
Let me just sit with that one for a moment. Stress is simply the resistance to what is happening. When you accept it, you notice that your stress level starts to drop.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got a cancer diagnosis, if you just lost your job, if there's the death of someone who was close to you in that moment, it's the most extremely stressful situation. Um, but as soon as you embrace it and maybe see it for the potential that the lessons that you've learned, or the memories or the experiences that you receive from that, you start to flip the way that you look at it. You start to release yourself from the stress.
Yeah, like
Mm,
saying this too, this too, this too,
yeah.
some of the most profound like moments that I've had in my life are like really from grace of God to have this like awareness that would come up through just all this practice that I've done is
Mm,
finding myself in really what would have been very overwhelming situations in my life. And we can go into some like, real specifics on another podcast, but just as an overall, like being in a place where I would have been very overwhelmed by the situation, taking a minute and saying like this too, this too, this too, and this is a movie. Like this is a very interesting part of the movie. The audience is captivated by what's happening right now. If I see myself in a movie right now, this isn't something that's destroying me. This is something that is like adding character to my life.
mm,
I'm becoming this is like a sad moment, but this is a sad, sweet moment in the movie,
yeah.
Um, so if you're approaching it that way and I imagine God's watching this movie and I'm his actor, and so in that moment it's like, okay, what would God like to see? Like, what would the audience like to see? How would they like to see me and behave as like the sort of protagonist in the story? What should I do? So
Yeah.
that really helps,
Yeah, I love that. But as you were talking, you think if you saw yourself like in a movie, and let's say you are the hero in your own movie, there's certain things that we do in public when we're around our friends or our spouse or, in a public area, and we conduct ourselves in a certain way because people are watching. But when we're alone and we're alone with our thoughts or when no one's looking, sometimes we feel like that doesn't count because no one's around, no one's going to know. And I think Gandhi has a great quote, and he said, "The greatest challenge for every human being on the planet is to bridge the public and pride itself, or the public and personal self, to bridge, to be the same person always." That's very, very challenging. And I was like, how does anybody do that? Can anyone achieve that where you are the same person, regardless of when you're completely on your own and no one's around to when you're around other people? And, when you just said, if you think of yourself like a movie, imagine that you're the hero in your movie and the viewer, there is somebody watching, or somebody will watch this movie, and they get to see all the scenes, not just the times when you were in front of your friends or with your wife but they get to see you 24/7. Would they still see you as the hero? Would you be embarrassed at all? Would you not want them to see it? Are there moments in your life that you conduct yourself in a way where you'd be really, really embarrassed or feel bad that someone got a chance to watch you, and see something that you're not necessarily proud of? And so that was just an interesting thought exercise for me, because I think that when you are alone, you know, especially when fear sets in, or shame sets in, or doubt. Sometimes when no one's looking, you might do something that you're like, I just hope no one knows that I did this. But if you see it like, listen, I'm writing a story that someone's going to read one day, maybe my kids, or someone's going to watch a movie that someone's going to watch one day, you might want to conduct yourself in a way that you'd be proud and you'd be happy to share. This is who I was, my authentic self. So, anyways, you just some food for thought. That was a good thought exercise for me.
Yeah, man, it's interesting you bring that up because that's been on my mind a lot lately. It was funny, like it was sparked by I was watching wrestling. There was the wrestler in the middle of the ring, Hangman Adam Page. He's talking to CM Punk. And he's like, they're having a feud back and forth, and he says to CM Punk, he's like, who you are in front of the crowd, in front of the audience, when the cameras are on you, it's easy to be a hero then, and then he was basically saying, like, what really matters is when no one's looking and you're by yourself and you're doing your work and you're staying disciplined. That's what makes a champion, when no one is looking and and it was like,
Wow.
it was just a small little thing like that, but it was really sparked in my mind.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
very wise speech from from the wrestling community. That's amazing. You can learn anywhere. Just goes to
Yeah,
show.
right. And that really like it hit home for me when he said that, because it was just like, yeah, like that is what counts, you know.
Yeah.
We're we're um um we're always, you know, another way to look at it is everything that we're like this current moment that we're experiencing together, the things that these opportunities that we have, the fun creative projects that we have, the friendships and relationships, you know, how they're going, everything that we're living right now is a result of the things that we've done previously, things that we've said, things that we've thought about. So those moments where nobody's looking, those count too.
Yes. So true.
So if you're planting those seeds and then, you know, you're doing things in secret that you think nobody is aware of, like you're just fooling yourself, because
Yes.
you're going to have to live that. You can't get around it. It's karma.
No.
It's the law of the universe. It's cause and effect. It's how it works. So
Yes.
that's a great motivation to, like, you know, those things that we're embarrassed of. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know if I can do it, but I can start trying.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think sometimes it's like people sometimes forget where it's like, well, nobody saw and there was no consequences. Nobody got hurt. Living with some of the decisions that you make as and nobody knows about sometimes is the greatest burden of all
Yeah.
because you know it. And at the end of the day, no one puts you to bed at night except yourself. And so, to live with that burden of, oh man, I did this, I did this, and I can't tell my wife, or I can't tell my kids, or I can't tell my best friend or my employer, or my, whoever it is. And it's like you now have to live with that. And that burden gets heavier and heavier as you get older and older, especially when, you want the golden rule is treat other people the way that you want to be treated. It's just kind of thinking like, wow, what if I was in that situation? What if I was in the opposite situation? And
Yeah. And
so,
it's like a lifetime journey to like to merge those two worlds, you know?
yeah,
Like
it
we
really
continue
is.
to do that forever and
It
getting
really is.
better and better at it. But if we're practicing it, if we're talking about these things and we're interested in doing it, and
Yeah.
we're getting better and better every day, you know? So
Yeah.
that's the thing, you know, don't beat yourself up for
Right.
not where you want to be. Don't, you know, but if you're taking steps, like then you're in the game, like you're doing it.
Yes. So,
That's it.
in that vein, Martin Luther King Jr. in his autobiography, he said something that changed the way that because I grew up Catholic, and you have to go to confession and say your sins and repent and ask for forgiveness, and so there's a really guilty consciousness I found from a lot of Catholics that I know or Christians that I've met, and even myself growing up. And you think there's certain things that are forgivable, and then certain things that aren't forgivable. But then you realize, but you're human in both experiences. And there's people that have committed the most atrocious crimes, that have found a way to find redemption. So Martin Luther King said something that I thought was absolutely beautiful, and he said, "When you finally meet God, he and you think about and he looks across your life and he looks back at the road that you traveled and the journey that you traveled, and he says, everyone is on this line, it curves. You make good decisions and bad decisions and mistakes and successes. He says, when God finally meets you, he does not judge you by the individual instances of your life. God judges you by the bent of the curve. Do you bend in the right direction? Have you tried? You're going to make mistakes, but does that curve bend in the right direction? Do you make better choices than worse choices for the majority of your life? That's what he wants to see. He wants to see that you're trying your best, not because you're human. Everyone's going to fail. You're going to make some terrible mistakes in your life, but do you try to correct and do you try to make sure that that curve bends in the right direction that you're proud of? Because if you're proud of it being in that direction, then there's a great chance that God will also be proud of it. So I just thought that was a really beautiful way to see it. And when I raise my own kids, especially my oldest, she has that guilty conscience, and I might be guilty of raising her in a certain way that makes her feel like that. But I think that there's something inside of her as well. She just wants to prove to herself and to others that she's, she's a good girl. And sometimes she'll say like, oh my goodness, like I did this, like I'm a bad person, or I'm a bad girl. No one ever calls her a bad girl or tells her she's a bad person, but she lays that on herself. And so I actually had that conversation with her. I said, which way are you trying, Mari? I said, like, are you trying to go in one direction? Are you trying to make bad choices? Are you trying to make good choices? You're going to stumble along the way, but just think about what direction you're going in, and that's the most important thing. Keep heading in that direction. You're going to get there. And it was a good moment for her, so.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. I had an ayahuasca experience that really like brought that home to me. It's like one of my early ones of working with that medicine, with the ceremony around it. And it was that, it was a mother ayahuasca, the feminine presence that I felt very like it was so tangible, that was just in this relationship with this feminine presence with the medicine. And she came to me and was telling me that, so say, during the experience, I was getting these really great, intuitive, flowing, wonderful insights about how to improve my life and things that I could do that would be better. And I was enjoying the high vibration of it. And then I noticed as that sort of crescendoed and I started thinking about the things that I had heard, thinking about the experiences that I just had with the medicine, that experiential, teaching that felt really great when it was happening. And then I started thinking about what she was showing me, and I started feeling bad about myself. Like, oh, but, I'm someone who did these things. And I started to like have this sort of like guilt around where I was, even though she was showing me where I could go. And then she came back in and she was just like, Chris, I'm only showing you these things because you're listening and you're interested in getting better and growing. If you are going to beat yourself up, I'm going to stop telling you. Wow. I'm going to stop telling you these things, because I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to make you, hate yourself. I'm just saying, like, this is how you can get better, and you can always get better, and you can always get better. So rather now I try to do that as much as possible. Is when that comes up, when you see like, oh, you think back about something that you did and you're like, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have done it that way. I wish I'd have done it another way. Just do that. Like,
yes. Yes.
Don't like keep rolling it over and beating yourself up. Just go, oh, cool. Like, all right, I'm going to be better than that next time. That's where I was. That's okay. Cool. I'm getting better every day. Like, and then just stop yourself. Don't keep beating yourself up. So just a little thing there. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Maya Angelou says, you did the best with what you knew at the time. And now that you know better, do better. And that was just the simplest way I've ever heard that being put. And I just thought that was beautiful. But give us another one if you got another one there, because these are fantastic.
Yeah. So Sister Ganamata, that's how you pronounce it. She was one of Paramhansa Yogananda's greatest women disciples. And she was fully awakened by the time she died. And she said, what happens to us doesn't matter. What we become through it does matter. So these things are going to happen to us. So like if you're on a spiritual path and then, a bunch of bad stuff starts happening to you, that's not what matters. You're like, oh, it's because of, you make up all these reasons why bad stuff is happening to you. She says, it's not about what's happening to you. What matters is what we become because of the things that happen to us. So these challenges that come up, like they actually, if we're seeing everything as happening for us, then we can learn and grow. And the follow-up to that, Nayaswami Devi, one of my teachers at Ananda, she says, this is the question that we should all ask ourselves. What am I becoming through the tests, the challenges, the anxieties and fears, the negativity and divisiveness? What am I becoming because of this? Am I becoming more calm, more sweet, more happy because I've like gone through all of these difficult trials and I'm now battle hardened and like you can't stop me because like I've gone through all these things? Or are you turning to things that are not helpful, like escapes through alcohol or through vice, any sort of vices that, like, call for us. It's like Yogananda calls them poison honey. He's like, well, why does God make this poison honey? He's like, sex and drugs and alcohol are so charming, he makes them, it's like poison honey tastes good, but it'll kill you.
So true.
But he's like, I argue with God all the time. You had no right to make all this poison.
Yeah, you're so right. That's so true. Poison honey. I've never heard it referred to that as before, but yeah. And they suck you in, and it's so temporary. It's not even like a change. You know what I mean? It's so momentary. It's what, like eating nothing bad against the people at McDonald's, but eating a Big Mac in the moment is just like a perfect example for me. In the moment when you're eating it, you almost like crave it. I haven't had one in quite some time, but eating a Big Mac in the moment, you're like, oh man, yeah, I feel like McDonald's, and I would eat it. And after I finished eating it, immediately after, I regretted it. Everything felt like, my whole body felt like shit. And I couldn't, it just like, became lethargic. I didn't, you know what I mean? That even the taste in your mouth afterwards is disgusting. And it's so momentary, but it's like you forget all of the way that you feel just right before you're about to take that first bite of it. And you're like, oh, why did I decide to do this to begin with? I feel like that about everything, whether it's like sex, or I haven't really dabbled too much in different types of drugs, but I know that it's temporary, because people always need to go back and get another hit and another hit, because it never lasts.
Yeah, right. And that's what we sort of like go to when we're feeling low. And rather than that, it's like, no, like these, and that's what with this community, like we're just keep continually reminding each other, like, no, like, those are things that actually help you, like break the pattern. So in my mind, what was coming up for me after my meditation was, okay, I was kind of taking a bird's eye view at my life and how I was responding to things. And this thought came in that, okay, me, the self, can say to this organism, this computer, override previous pattern. Like take a minute, like override previous thought patterns, override previous, subconscious protocol.
I'm typing that in our Discord right now. Override previous thought patterns. Break the pattern.
Yeah, because it'll come up and then you'll just automatically do this. You'll automatically go for a drink. You'll automatically go for watching porn. You'll automatically go for something that's just going to make you feel good because you feel like shit. And it's not like we shouldn't go from feeling like shit to like trying to feel like amazing in a short burst of like some sort of sensory pleasure, because we get so just used to like just going for that thing, and it leaves you dry and feeling shamed and guilty. You never are happy with yourself afterwards. So it's like these things that we're talking about, like we can really go for just, I say to people, if you don't have like a daily routine activity thing that you do, like breath work, like just learning how to do some of these pranayama. It's so popular now with, Wim Hof made it really popular.
Yes.
There's breathwork apps and things like that. Like, and I can share some links to some that I think are good and valuable. And man, you can feel amazing. And then, Wim Hof calls it getting high on your own supply. Yeah. And then after you do it, you don't feel like shit for doing it. You feel everything is enhanced. Your body is healing, inflammation is healing. You're full of your blood is oxygenated. Your mind is thinking clearly. Your synapses are connecting. Like that's the thing to do when you're feeling down. It's like, don't go for poison honey, like go for the thing that really will help you, so, and it's good, it feels good. Do it.
It does, especially when you get through it. You get the strength from every single time you get past it. You get the strength from that. And like you said, the community is key. And sometimes you feel alone, and like we said, when no one's looking, you're like, nah, I'm gonna go have this chocolate, I'm gonna go watch that porn, I'm gonna go have this drink. No one's around, I have the time. But what's really cool is we actually are building out a community where when you have this moment, you can go to the community and be like, guys, I'm feeling, and get that feedback, get that motivation, get that encouragement to change the pattern, override the current thought process, change the pattern, and access this greater space.
And I'm not going to pretend like I don't feel like I feel it every day, but I override it as much as it's like more and more every day. Like I'm getting better at overriding it. I'm picking the right, so yeah.
All right. Do you want to do one more?
Yeah. So this is the last little point here. Okay. So Swami Kriyananda, direct disciple of Paramhansa Yogananda, one of my biggest teachers, he says, this is one of the most wonderful times in history of mankind to be alive.
Wow. Doesn't matter the time.
Yeah, so obviously we're not living in a golden age, right?
Yeah.
There's wars, there's pandemics, there's divisiveness. We're more divided than we've ever been, even though we have all these tools to connect us. How could you say that? It's like, how could you say that,
Yes.
And I've been thinking about that because I also feel that too. Like I feel for my soul, this is the greatest time in the history of mankind for me to be here right now.
Yes.
It is. And I was thinking like, okay, how could that statement possibly be true? And something that was coming up for me is that my guess is that part of the reason that he says this is because this is the most potent time in the history of mankind for your soul to learn, to grow, to expand. You don't go to a chiropractor and say like, take it easy on me, I just want a little something. You want your back to be healed, so you give, do whatever you got, you do whatever it takes. I want to feel better. So that's I think the reason why this is the most incredible time in the history of mankind, because we selected this time to come here, and we wanted our souls, before they got confused and got identified with the body, they said, yeah, I want that one, because that one, oh man, I'm going to learn so much, I'm going to grow so much, I'm going to really, make a big leap here. And I feel like that in my life now, like thinking where I've come from and where I'm at now, like, man, like this was a good one,
Yeah. I love that. I think, I think of what hit me when you said that, when you read that, was, if you believe that things always get better eventually, like there's hardships and there's pains. After World War I, there was a World War II, but equality and rights and access to information and people, it has continuously got better. I feel like to not recognize that that this isn't the best time to live in means that everything that came before us to get us to this point was in vain. And I don't believe that. I think people sacrifice their lives and their time, which is the greatest currency we all have, just so we can exist in this space today, whatever this space is. They did it all, and it was worthwhile, because this is the greatest space, and we have the greatest opportunity to create the world we want to create. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but in our children's lifetimes or their children's lifetime. The goal is to always leave it a little bit better than it was before you got here. And I'd like to think that everyone that came before us, they did that. This world is a little bit better than it was before they got here. And we got the privilege to live in the place that they created. And we're going to do the same for the next generation.
Yeah, 100%. And just to think about it in that way, we can get into also like talking about the yugas, which is really one of my most fascinating studies, is just like the cycles of time that all of the great cultures have talked about: Golden Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and how we're constantly just moving through these ages based on planetary alignments during that time of our planet moving, or the solar system moving around its dual and that sort of a thing. When we're closer to the center, we're more awakened, more, the mass consciousness is just at a higher level. Right now, Swami Sri Yukteswar, in the lineage of gurus that I follow, he says that we are in an ascending age of energy, Dwapara Yuga. We've come out of the material age he says in 1700. This is a fully awakened master just telling us how it is. In 1700, that was the end of the Kali Yuga, the material age, when man could only understand matter, physical things. There was no electricity, there was no cryptocurrency, no radio, no TV. We didn't understand anything that didn't have like a physical, thinking about radio waves in the air, in the ether. Like we couldn't possibly understand that, let alone the energy in our body, that our body is made of vibrating energy. That so in 1700, all these inventions started to come through, and these realizations that different scientists at the same time, whatever. The electron microscope was invented, discovered. We can zoom in on an atom, and we can realize that inside that atom is 99.99999% empty space, you know.
Yeah.
And so, and then, you know, that those discoveries lead to other discoveries, and now we find ourselves in this age of energy, where now our money is energy, everything that we're moving into a metaverse. Yes. You know, we're in this ascending age of energy. It's so obvious once you look at it that way.
Yeah.
And I like to look back at, like, say, like you read these old, you know, these scriptures and the stories of saints where they would need to live in caves and escape into the forest in ashrams. And if you really wanted to know God, you had to like completely there was no point in being out in the world, because nobody wants to hear it. Nobody else is practicing it. It's just, you know, you and your guru, and then he'll send you into the forest, and you just be with God and meditate every day, you know. Right. And that's what it was. And it had to be like that. Now we're in this age where I have access to, if I really want to be sincere and I want to seek out teachers, like I can learn those same practices that, you know, these sages did in these caves. But I get to do it out in the world. Like we have a podcast where we get to talk about this stuff. Like others are interested in it, you know, like I can make a career around this kind of stuff, and we're all learning and growing. And so you don't have to you can be like a householder, as it's known in Buddhism, you know, like you can have a family, you can do these things, and it actually like is appreciated. You know, Christ was nailed to a cross during the Kali Yuga for just even talking about these things. So we're in a magical, wonderful age. There's going to be a lot of shakeup. Obviously, we're in the middle of everything right now, and it's just the old past is dying and crumbling, so that the new, better, more expanded things are happening. This is an age of energy, which they say is personal interest, I think is the way. It's like personal interest, you know, times energy. You know, it's like the things that we really want to do with our lives, we'll be able to do more and more. It's like before, you had to like work in a factory, you had to do what your dad was doing, your mom was doing, you had to be a mom, stay-at-home mom. You didn't have opportunities to grow. So now we're like it's like, you know, we're making a company out of like talking about the Ramayana or like art, you know. These are things that didn't happen in the Kali Yuga. So there's so much more opportunity, and it's just going to keep getting better and better and better. But there's going to be a lot of stuff to get through. So that's why it's important to stay calm, sweet, and happy in this shake-up period. Make good, and have people that you can count on, and do good things so that you have good karma, and people will help you out when you need it. All that.
Well said. Well said. All right. Well, thank you for sharing all those dimes. That was unbelievable. So much food for thought. Even just for me, like I have to go back and really sit with a lot of the lessons that we talked about today. But thank you, Chris. That was such a blessing. Do you mind maybe if we could ask a few more quick questions here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about the Ramayana in itself, in the culture that it came up in. It's very well known. You said that it was also the story that has been told more than any other story since the beginning of time. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why is it, if that's the case, why is it that it has not been popularized in the Western world?
Maybe we weren't ready till now. You know, I think we're ready now. Like that's what's exciting about it, you know. And then seeing all the monkeys, you know, how popular monkeys are.
That's true.
Like guys, the planet is like, so it's like maybe that's Hanuman energy, you know, returning or making his way to America, you know, because that story is known so well and so obvious in Southeast Asia,
Mm.
and places like Thailand, and if you go to Bali, like every museum is just full of artwork around the Ramayana, and in India it's everywhere. And so, but here it's like this little secret somehow. I mean, it's shown itself, and it's permeated our culture. Like I think I was saying on the last episode, we talked about it was like the Ramayana is George Lucas's like secret, like that was his inspiration for writing the Star Wars trilogy. And this story is also, it's universal. Like Joseph Campbell would talk about, like this same story you would see in other cultures with, just other flavors, like other characters, other cultural context, but this story is how one of them was the most ancient culture on planet Earth has kept this story alive throughout millennia. And they say that as long as the Ramayana is continuing to be told on Earth, then the spirit of Hanuman will remain accessible to us. Like he is our refuge. Like he's not actually a monkey. He's not actually a form, it is like our last refuge. So as a soul, like as we're talking about this game, just think about it as a virtual reality universe video game, whatever. Our souls can jump in and, we're God. We jump into this virtual reality video game. We're allowed to play it. We are allowed to do whatever we want. We're allowed to like go nuts. Like, say like in Westworld, you're allowed to be the villain. You're allowed to do, it's yours. Go do whatever you want. Like find out for yourself that doesn't work. How low that you'll get when you do these things. It's a perfect simulation of teacher. So go ahead and do whatever you want. Like it's yours. As far down and deep and dark as you go, like playing this video game, no matter what, the spirit of Hanuman will be there for you to bring you home when you're ready. So you can never go too far where you're beyond redemption, or you're beyond like discovering that you actually are just God that got confused and got lost and scared, and now all of a sudden you got all these bills and these things, and you're in jail, and you got whatever had happened to you. There's always, so that's what this Hanuman is, that reminder. Like he's always there for us, and he'll always be there. So that story,
so powerful.
That's why it keeps getting generated, like told. That's how the sages passed it down. They would pass it from master to disciple. They would in a higher age, before the previous higher age, they didn't need to write it down. There was no script. It was just like we could just
oral tradition.
We're just shared collective consciousness.
And
and then as the ages got lower and lower, they had to start chanting it. Then they had to start writing it in Sanskrit, and then and then start making artwork around it, then start turning him into a monkey, so it's more exciting, start making these stories into more relevant. So like, what's the most exciting? Oh, okay, let's make it an army of animals. What is this that's going to get your imagination going, and you won't forget it.
So you said shared consciousness is where it's first started. That's how it kind of was shared between. Do you feel like we'll be able to get back there as humanity? Like, actually, I feel like Elon Musk has been talking about that, which is kind of interesting because, he's at the forefront of all these, technologies, but I think maybe it was a Joe Rogan podcast, and he talked about it, and he said like shared consciousness where you're going to be able to know what someone's thinking without them having to tell you is something that we're working on. And he's like, it's not far away. It's kind of interesting because I think it sounds like he's taking a very technological or scientific approach. And maybe there is a spiritual aspect to it that he's just, he hasn't gotten into yet because maybe we're just not ready for it. But it's interesting that that's where it began. And it seems like that's where we're going.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Totally. Yeah. I think it's like something that we're craving and that we're all want to, we know because our consciousness was there. We've been there. We've had that shared. So I think
Yeah.
we all collectively want it. Like, that's why we like social media and we like all of these things
Mm,
that connect us, and we're learning so much. We can, we can learn it. Everything that you learned, you can teach me, and then I can just expand my awareness. And
yeah.
so I think what he's doing, and what like a lot of these scientists are doing, is through technology, trying to create a technology to help us do that, where if
Mm,
we all like knew our own real true powers, and we were actually collectively, practicing these things together, and we had that ancient knowledge, we could do it on our own without
right.
technology.
Right.
Mhm.
Which is
100%.
maybe we, like, so maybe it's like, you start there and it's like the hero's journey, right? You're always trying to return home,
Yeah,
and
we're in the age of
maybe.
that. We're in the age of an energy right now, so that's why it's technology. So then,
Mm,
after we go past the age of energy, and you can use it as technology, or you can use it as like sort of this technology of understanding the energy in your body and do it without an iPhone or whatever. But
mm,
then, as we move from this age, we're going to move into the age of magnetism, and the age of magnetism, where they'll have technology, maybe technologies around it, but we'll be moving things with our own magnetism, with our
right.
mind, sound, those kind of things. And then we move into the spiritual age, where we're back to that golden age again, where we're just, uh, in tune with our true God consciousness. So, but yeah, that's where we're moving and we're headed. So I think we just
Cool.
watch. Don't get scared of technology. Don't, obviously there's a lot of, there are villains on earth that are doing a lot of villainous things, but um, that never works out. Like,
Right.
see like movies are showing us, like, okay, if you're the villain, you're going to do villainous stuff. It's not going to work out good for you in
It
the
never
end.
ends. Yeah. They always fall. There'll be
Hmm.
tyrants and, you know, people that are, the worst representatives of humanity, but they always fall and good
Hmm.
prevails.
Hmm.
So, okay. So just getting back to why wasn't it popularized? Maybe we haven't been ready for it, but I do love the fact that you said all these monkey projects and ape projects are laying the groundwork for this. So Board Ape Yacht Club and, On-Chain Monkey, and all of these are just, they're popular, and they built incredible communities, and people. Some people don't even like the artwork, but they love being a part of the community and what it represents. And without those, well, I guess those are like the hallmarks in the NFT space. At least there are many others. Without that, maybe we wouldn't have been able to even tell the story right now. But I do think you're right. I think that, perhaps they are just laying the groundwork, and once that's done, people will be able to embrace this story and these incredible NFTs of Hanuman, that will relate to them spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally. That this will be your representative, and hopefully something to remind you that you are, like you said, like there's a God within all of us. Or the infinite is within all of us, and we just need to be reminded of that. We can get through any situation, whatever presents itself.
100%, 100%. Yeah, man. I'm glad you brought back to the question too, because it's like, okay, yeah, focus me here.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm with you on the journey.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
um, so okay, the reason why it's not popular here, yeah, is because those traditions, those cultures, like what I was saying, is they've kept it alive. It never died. It's not like it went away and came back in India. Like, they spiritual connection is their great genius, in the East and in India specifically.
Mm,
Yogananda says it's going to be the spiritual genius of India, and the ingenuity and the genius of invention and creativity in America. Like these things. That's not exactly how he said it, but it's those two that will combine. Like
right.
we've made this. We've showed that we don't have to live in squalor. We can actually, like, do great things that help manage waste and help manage environmental issues and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be like that combination of the spiritual genius of India and America coming together to bring us into this new age. And so with the Ramayana, it never like faded out in India. It stayed like that. And in America, we don't have a spiritual tradition. You know, our God is technology and invention and ingenuity, and hard work. You know, but those things are necessary. You know, so it's the combination of those two things. So in America, we're now just getting, and Yogananda was a big part of it when he moved to California and Los Angeles in 1920s, of bringing yoga to America, you know, and it's spread since then. And we're now getting this, like, so many people are interested in these things because it works. So it's real. It's not
Right.
like, it's not this, it just really works. So you do it, it works. It's scientific. So now for us, we're just learning about the Ramayana. Like, we're just learning about mythology and how to use mythology, and how ancient cultures, you know, have used myth and have used rituals and used shamanic work in order for us to, like, unlock these just collective conscious, like, archetypal stories that can teach us how to live, you know. Like, we don't have any sort of initiation rites of becoming a man in the US or becoming a woman, or, you know, like, we've lost touch with those kind of things. And these other cultures have, like, kept it burning this whole time. So now we're just, like, learning about it. So for me, even as a Westerner, like, I'm just very interested. I'm not by no means an expert in any of this. I'm just very interested in it, you know? So I study it all the time, and we're starting this project around it. And I love that I just get to make my whole life, like talking about it and drawing it and, you know, chanting it. And
Yes,
so
yes.
when we do those kind of things, that's when we really tap into the power of it. And you can enjoy it on any level. You can enjoy it like you're watching Star Wars. You can enjoy it like, you know, as lessons for how to live. You can enjoy it as a, you know, a leader of, like, how to lead a group, how to lead a team. So whatever you're ready for. So now, as because I'm so interested in it, because it's got me so excited, and now, like, I have this opportunity to start, you know, I've got a team behind this project now, and we're looking at just amplifying this story, you know. So that's really exciting to think about, being able to have you seen the show American Gods? Maybe we talked about it, or read
No.
Neil Gaiman. Amazing books and series. But so the idea of American Gods is really an immigration story of all of these different cultures coming to America, bringing with them their cultures and their gods and their traditions. And that over time, so in America, it's like this sort of melting pot of everybody's traditions and cultures and ancient practices that are very strong in the places that they left. But when they come here, it gets watered down a little more every year, a little more, until those gods are no longer remembered. And so that the book and the show is about those gods, like, losing their power and becoming very weak. And the gods of America, like technology and you know, social media, these kind of things are our gods. Television, these are our gods, you know. So those gods are becoming so powerful that they can just wipe out these old gods and just, you know, and, like, you know, well, nobody believes in you, you know. So a part of my reason for doing, you know, focusing on Hanuman as well is, like, I want to make sure that this story of Hanuman, for all the people that have come over and brought him to, and I've been able to travel and go, you know, experience him in temples and things like that, to awaken that here in America, this ability to, like, tap into this most ancient story, most potent story that is really just showing us our own true potential. So that's a big part of kind of like the way that I see it.
Oh, very cool. Okay. I think this is very well answered. And I think I'm so grateful, like you said, we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, like, I get to that feeling, I get to do this. I feel so grateful that I get to be a part of the process of potentially telling the story for the first time to many people in the Western world through this project and supporting your artistry. So I'm very, very grateful that I have that opportunity.
Yeah, me too, man.
Yeah.